I was lucky enough to come to Pakistan last year in September and visit the projects, and actually I was very excited to bring Deborah and Lila and Grow to Pakistan to be able to show them what was happening here, because I felt it was a very special project.
I've been trying to come to Pakistan for some time now, but have not been able to make it due to different reasons. And so I've had a lot of time to think about Pakistan and what I would see. My impression was based on my experience in Afghanistan, where there was much destruction of villages. And my expectation that Pakistan would be very impoverished, but not as impoverished as Afghanistan. So I think really the trip has reinforced that expectation, that there are very different cities in very different stages of development.
I have read a lot about Pakistan and also seen it on television. But I was surprised about two things. First of all, it was very crowded, a lot of people, more than I have expected. But the special thing is that I was thinking it was a little special that it was so few women, ladies outdoor. Mostly I saw men, and especially when I went into shops and to restaurants, they were sitting in a corner for themselves, if they was there, because the men was all over. That was special for me.
This is my first time to Pakistan. The biggest difference was that I thought that first of all Islamabad was a big million city, and it was a city with a lot of people living all around in a big area. And the other part of it is that the whole of Pakistan is very green, very, very green.
The first thing we did when we arrived in Pakistan was we went straight to the markets, and we had to buy material because we had to have traditional dress made. And so we went and we found the materials, and then we had to find a tailor who could make them for us in a matter of hours. So that is what the first thing that we did was in order to make sure that we blended in with the local community.
And then we went down to Quetta with Farah and Tipu, and we had 2 days in Quetta to visit 4 schools.
My favorite story from Quetta was the very first school we went to, and it was a school that was very remote in Quetta, outside of the city. It's a school that is attended by Afghan refugee boys, and these are boys who up to 6 months ago had never experienced sport. And 6 months ago their coach, Nasim, got in touch with Insan Foundation and to ask about having projects there for children. The children there had not experienced sport and play ever before. And these were children who had left Afghanistan, had fled with their families during the war, and due to cultural traditions, sport and play activities were not the norm for them. But within the community, there were problems of children taking snuff because they were bored. There were children who were on the streets doing conflict. There were many, many social problems that were being created. And Nasim shared with us that in order to get the sport and play activities going, he really had to make sure he had parental support, especially from the fathers, because without the parents' support, the children would not be allowed to play. So what he shared with us is that he sensitized the parents by having them come to regular sessions where he could share with them that it is not about wasting time to do sport and play activities. In fact, that by having the children do sport and play activities, they would in fact improve their academic studies. He also talked about the connection to the Quran, and where within the Quran there was reference to the importance of sport and to physical activity, and that helped to start to shift parents to consider it. He then let the parents know that he would be with their children and that on a regular basis, it began on a weekly basis, he would be having meetings with them to make sure that they were comfortable with what they were seeing, and if there were any changes that need to be made, he would be doing so. In fact, the response from the parents was very positive, and so the work began to grow, and in 6 months he's made incredible things happen. Nasim, the principal of the school, he really felt that sport and play activities would make a difference for the boys at the school. So he started running a number of leagues. One is a cricket league, and we spent the first afternoon watching the boys play a full cricket match, and it was fantastic.
Yes.
Friendship.
Oh, nice.
Friendship club versus Ittihad.
Now,
Unity club.
Industry club is going to bed.
We were on a field, a cricket field, where outside of the school, and it was all boys playing cricket, and even some men from the community had also come to watch the cricket match.
But the fact that 6 months ago these boys had never even experienced sport and play, and now that they're embracing it, they had their sports shirts on that said Kenya, that said India, was fantastic. You could sense the pride and the sense of a shift within them.
It was a very hot, dusty day. In the middle of the day, there were quite a few people around watching, and they weren't sure what to think of these women from Canada who had come to watch them play. You could see on their faces in the beginning that they weren't sure what was happening, and they weren't sure why we were there or why we were interested in cricket. But Deborah started to communicate with some of the boys, and she started to show interest in cricket as a game. We don't play cricket in Canada, so we're not familiar with cricket. And she started to ask questions and to communicate with boys, and very soon after you could see the transformation in their faces. They started smiling, and they started coming out and being more confident about asking questions. And I think the highlight was when Deborah picked up a cricket bat, and one of the boys was teaching her how to use it. And the whole community was laughing and enjoying with her.
Well, I have to say it was my first experience with cricket. I've seen cricket played on fine lawns in England, but I've watched it and I thought it was really more a game about having a long picnic as opposed to a true sport. Watching these children play and the extent to which the bowlers and the batters and those they call the all-rounders who were playing all the different roles, the extent to which they were committed on a very rough playing field in a remote part of Pakistan after having fled from Afghanistan was so inspiring, because these children, for them a bat became the focus of their life and the reason why they would show up to school and the reason why they would pursue their studies. For me, I had the chance to pick up the bat and learn how to swing the bat. Some of the children were showing me how to do that. And it was just a great connection, reinforcing that the way that we can connect through sport. And with the children, when we first arrived, they were very closed. But as soon as we started to pick up the sports equipment and play with them, they opened. It was fantastic. You could see their hearts open and their eyes open, and they began to smile and gather around and get very curious. And before we'd actually touched the bat, they were very distant. And again, I felt that the transformational power of sport was at work again.
Congratulations. So through sport, you have healthy minds and the chance to have healthy bodies. And this is so important as you learn and grow for the adventures ahead in life. So I have learned much from you about cricket. I will take back to Canada with me.
After the cricket match, we went back to the school and we had a chance to meet with the young volunteers who are also coaches and players. And to sit and listen to them and to hear about their dreams, and that sport was just a beginning for them, that they really wanted to improve their academic practices. They wanted to become doctors, engineers. All sorts of dreams were presented to us, which was so inspiring, again, in a place where the classrooms were so simple and the resources were so few. But their dreams were huge. And listening to them talk to each other, talking about how sport had transformed the way that they interacted with each other, how it was transforming the way that the children in the community were working and playing together, even outside of the school, was really inspiring again. We went to the Jamaluddin Afghani school, and at that school, it was, again, we drove through these very narrow streets. The van could hardly get through the streets, and we came to these simple metal doors. We went inside, and the first thing that we saw, I don't know, dozens and dozens of shoes lined up on the floor outside of the classrooms that the children had left outside of the class.